Prison life is hard life, but it can be even harder for celebrity rappers. To go from a life of glamour and excesses to a life of confinement and isolation can cause a devastating reality check to these rappers. Usually the only thing standing between them and a lengthy jail term are witnesses. So it's been common practice to pressure, coerce, and blackmail witnesses from testifying. Take your front row court seats, and let's take a look at these people who were threatened by rappers. Young Thug. Except you spent the last 12 months under an iceberg in Antarctica, you must have heard about the popular Young Thug and YSL RICO case. Young Thug, born Jeffrey Lamar Williams, is a lot of things. An enigma, fashion icon, philanthropist, and now an indicted criminal. His enigmatic personality has been responsible for his success and influence on modern hip-hop and trap, but now he's currently behind bars in what his lawyer describes as inhumane. If a celebrity with criminal roots like Young Thug is temporarily held up in a windowless cement compartment with only a bed and toilet and an overhead light that remains on 24 hours per day, preventing any sleep, rest, or meditation, one can be assured he would employ shady methods to prevent getting sentenced permanently. These shady methods, such as threatening witnesses, have already been employed and would be discussed in detail. But how did he get here initially? Let's go back to the 9th of May, 2022. Young Thug was taken into custody after his home was raided by law officials. Officers took him to the Fulton County Jail, where he was charged with conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations, or RICO Act, as well as participating in criminal street gang activity. Young Thug, as well as 27 YSL members including Gunna, Yak Gotti, and Lil Gotit, were arrested and subsequently charged. Another name for YSL is Young Slime Life. The charges levied against Thug had YSL as a criminal gang with Young Stoner Life as the cover for Young Slime Life. Initially, Young Thug was only charged with conspiracy to violate the RICO Act and participation in criminal gang activity. However, 7 additional felonies were charged against Young Thug after gaining evidence from the search of his house. The new charges include possession of marijuana with the intention to distribute, possession of codeine with the intention to distribute, possession of cocaine, possession of a machine gun, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. The 88-page grand jury indictment identifies YSL, Young Slime Life, as a criminal street gang and alleges 182 instances of the groups participating in gang activity and criminal conspiracies, citing rap lyrics, Twitter and Instagram posts, as well as clothing or accessories with slime emblazoned on them as evidence. The conspiracy charge stems from alleged incidents that occurred between January 24, 2013 and May 8, 2022. One of Young Thug's more serious offenses allegedly occurred on January 7, 2015. Young Thug allegedly rented a car described as a 2014 Infiniti Q50 sedan that was used in the commission of the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., a rival gang member. District Attorney Fannie Willis stated that the aftermath of Thomas's death created violence like Atlanta has never seen. District Attorney Fannie Willis had made it her mission to take a tough stand against Atlanta gangs.
I've made no secret about it, nor any apology, that as the District Attorney of Fulton County, my #1 focus is targeting gangs. And there's a reason for that. They are committing conservatively 75 to 80% of all of the violent crime that we are seeing within our community. And so they have to be rooted out of our community.
Atlanta is ranked as the 5th most dangerous city in America, with a rise in gang-related criminal activities. The DA's office has made it a point of reference to go after Young Thug, who they believe, as they stated in the court documents, is affiliated with the National Bloods gang. The prosecution team has offered many other defendants plea deals. However, Young has had 3 bond applications refused. It is obvious from the prosecution's case that they believe Young Thug is the most dangerous member of the activity. A little over 7 months after his arrest in May, Gunna walked free on December 14th. 2022, after both he and Young Thug were denied bond multiple times. The rapper pleaded guilty to a charge of racketeering conspiracy in what is known as an offered plea. This is a deal that allows him to plead guilty if it's in his interest while maintaining his innocence. His 5-year sentence was then scaled down to time served and 500 hours of community service as part of the deal. Although Gunna did not technically confess, a lot of people in the hip-hop community, both fans and artists, are not happy that he took the deal. Popular artists like Lil Baby, Meek Mill, and Polo G unfollowed him on Instagram at the time of his release. Days later, 7 other defendants took plea deals and were released from jail just ahead of the new year. As of July, many of the original defendants had their cases separated from the trial, 4 did not have legal representation, and 2 had not been arrested by early January. Right now, there are currently 8 defendants remaining in the YSL trial, and without a doubt, one of them is Young Thug. Young Thug remains behind bars and is one of the 8 defendants standing trial, still without a jury selected. Young Thug's lawyer, Brian Steele, at the time Instagram claimed that the rapper has no access to media, including TV or the internet, nor any freedom to exercise, shower, or have human contact. Fellow YSL rapper also spoke out against poor jail conditions in an Instagram post, sharing an open letter to his 4.4 million followers. 22 and 2, just a bed and a shower, no windows, just walls, he wrote in the caption. Can't see or talk to anyone. There seemed to be a possibility Young Thug could get out on bond in recent weeks. The judge denied the rapper bond for the third time, citing the threat of witness intimidation, the threat of fleeing, and dangers to the community in a hearing. Now, this isn't the first time witness intimidation had popped up in the Young Thug case. It had been a semi-regular occurrence. Prosecutors in the case against Young Thug and his group of associates have cited numerous threats to kill or harm witnesses, and have secured an order that forces defense lawyers to withhold witnesses' contact information from their clients. Prosecutors claim they have learned of numerous threats against witnesses who stated that they fear not only for their own lives, but for their families' lives should they testify. The defense lawyers have come out to deny any attempt to intimidate witnesses. District Attorney Fonnie T. Willis of Fulton County filed a motion with the court that said the gang has a history of intimidating witnesses, and also noted an incident described in the indictment in which a gang member named Christian Eppinger, aka Big Briss, is accused of attempting to murder 2 Atlanta police officers. The motion argues that even the lives of law enforcement officers are potentially endangered, noting that a family member of one of the YSL associates, Cortavius Mender, was recently arrested and accused of threatening the Fulton County Sheriff, Patty Labatt, and his wife. The motion states that Mr. Mender wrote, "Free Thug or I'ma shoot you and your wife. I'm assassinate you," on the sheriff's social media profile. Young Thug has been behind bars since his arrest in May and is now standing trial. Jury selection for the trial began over 6 months ago, in January 2023, but by July, a jury still has not been selected for the trial. Over 2,000 people have been summoned to possibly serve on the jury. The hesitancy is quite understandable, as nobody wants to get threatened by fans of Young Thug and YSL as a whole. Another reason for the difficulty in finding jurors is because of the length of the trial. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that the trial may be the longest in Georgia's history. Suge Knight. Marion Hugh Knight Jr., better known as Suge Knight, is a former American record executive and the co-founder and former CEO of Death Row Records. Knight was a key figure and a major pillar in the commercial success of gangsta rap in the 1990s. At the peak of his powers, he was a very notorious figure in the rap game. He had everyone in the hood terrified of him, and people knew better than to cross his path. Another incident that made his name more popular was the murder of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious Big, aka Biggie Smalls, the 2 biggest rappers of that era. Though he was never charged by any prosecutor for any involvement, Suge Knight has been the subject of theories in pop culture about the murder of the 2 well-known rappers. Tupac was in a black BMW 750 IL sedan with Suge Knight when he was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada on September 7, 1996. Tupac was struck 4 times, once in the arm, once in the thigh, and twice in the chest, with 1 bullet entering his right lung. He died 6 days later on September 13th, when Tupac's East Coast rival, the Notorious Big, was murdered in a similar drive-by shooting in Los Angeles, California on March 9, 1997. Speculation arose that Knight was involved and that Biggie's death was a revenge killing. Former Death Row artists, such as Snoop Dogg, also later accused Knight of being involved in Tupac's murder. Another popular rapper who got involved with Suge Knight was Eazy-E, a rapper who propelled West Coast rap and gangsta rap by leading the group NWA and its label, Ruthless Records. Now it was known that Suge Knight and Eazy-E had a very combative relationship, especially during the formation of Death Row Records, with Dr. Dre. Suge Knight allegedly attacked Eazy-E after he refused to sign a contract that would release him from Ruthless Records. What made this story darker was during a Jimmy Kimmel Live interview in 2003, where Suge Knight mentioned a method of murder by injecting someone with blood that is infected with HIV/AIDS. And this was exactly how Eazy-E died in 1995. Let's check out the clip.
Technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
This interview sparked a lot of controversies, and conspiracy theories started spreading about how Suge Knight, due to his hostile relationship with him, killed Eazy-E by injecting him with a syringe that contained HIV/AIDS-infected blood. Eazy-E's oldest son, who goes by Young Eazy, stated that he believes that there was foul play involved in the death of his dad. Eazy-E's daughter, E.B. Wright, started a fund campaign to investigate her father's death, which ended unsuccessfully in 2016. Now, even after being indicted, his menacing and savage presence still lingers and and remains a threat to those who want to see him locked up, evidenced by his threat of an actual Hollywood director. He was also accused of seeking to bribe witnesses in his murder case. But before we deal with his current case, let's take a look at his past problems, which are punctuated with police officers and prison cells. In the summer of '92, at a Hollywood recording studio, Suge Knight assaulted 2 rappers and was consequently sentenced to 5 years probation after he pleaded a no contest in a 1995 federal case. On October 22, 1996, Knight was sent to jail pending a hearing on the probation violation that happened when Suge Knight and his death row entourage, including Tupac Shakur, attacked Orlando Anderson, a Crips gang member. Knight was sentenced to 9 years in prison on February 28, 1997, for violating his probation. He was granted early release and was let out on August 6, 2001. Just 2 years after getting out, he was back in again. In 2003, Knight was sent to prison again for violating parole when he struck a parking lot attendant. Over the next few years, he was still involved in a lot of dirty deeds such as altercations with rival gangs, gun charges, and possession of drugs. The big incident that would see him get locked up for 28 years happened on January 29, 2015. On this fateful day, witnesses said they saw Suge Knight and one of his longtime rivals, CLE Sloan, aka The Bone, fighting outside a Compton burger stand. Knight was upset about his portrayal in an NWA biopic, Straight Outta Compton, on which Sloan was serving as a consultant. Knight followed him to the burger stand parking lot and intentionally clipped Sloan with his pickup truck, seriously injuring him before speeding through the parking lot and running over Terry Carter, his friend and co-founder of Heavyweight Records. He immediately fled the scene in Compton, California. Terry Carter unfortunately died, while the second victim, CLE Sloan, suffered multiple fractures in his ankles and head injuries. Security footage video showed Knight running over both men. Meanwhile, Knight claimed he acted in self-defense. In March 2015, Knight was hospitalized after he told a judge that he was suffering from blindness and other complications. Knight fired attorneys handling his murder case and said he was receiving inadequate medical treatment while in custody. Knight also happened to shuffle his defense team about 16 times throughout the entire trial. In July 2016, the judge denied Knight's motion to reveal the identities of several key prosecution witnesses, citing Knight's long history of violence. But it was not only violence Suge Knight had in store for the witnesses, he wanted to pay them off also. 6 months before Knight's plea deal, his attorney, Matthew Fletcher, and another member of Knight's defense team, Thaddeus Culpepper, were indicted on several charges related to the alleged witness tampering. Fletcher was also charged with a count of perjury, arising from a hearing connected to an unrelated allegation of misconduct brought in 2016 by the State Bar of California. Prosecutors cited that the attorneys of rap mogul Suge Knight were prepared to pay witnesses to testify that a group of men who confronted Knight at the burger stand were armed with guns in order to bolster Knight's claim he was the target of an assassination plot and had been fleeing for his life when he killed Terry Carter and seriously injured CLE Bone Sloan in January 2015. The prosecutor's case relied heavily on recorded jailhouse conversations Fletcher had with Knight, as well as discussions with a sheriff's department informant who posed as a witness willing to help the defense. Prosecutors have admitted they have no evidence Fletcher actually bribed anyone, but argued at trial that his recorded comments show he intended to do so. If these got a price, well, let's get that price paid, Fletcher said to the informant on one call played in court. I told Suge, man, you can always make some more money. You can't make any more freedom though. In another call, Fletcher told Knight that $25,000 would be a fair investment to secure an acquittal. To win this type of conspiracy conviction, prosecutors needed to prove that Fletcher made an agreement with someone to commit a crime and took a step toward doing so, even if he didn't complete the criminal act. Fletcher has insisted that his references to paying witnesses were about his willingness to compensate them for videos or other recordings they made at the burger stand. In Knight's case, Fletcher claimed videos shot by witnesses would show Knight's alleged attackers were holding guns, but no videos or other evidence corroborating that claim have ever surfaced. In February 2017, the hip-hop figure was indicted by the grand jury on the charge of violating a penal code that includes threatening to commit a crime which will result in death or great bodily injury to another person. Allegedly, he sent a series of threatening text messages to F. Gary Gray, the director of Straight Outta Compton, see August 8, 2014, after seeing his aggressive portrayal in the NWA biopic. Suge Knight pleaded not guilty to the charge, and the charge was dropped as part of Knight's plea agreement in the death of Terry Carter. When September arrived, Knight pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter. The judge sentenced Knight to 28 years in prison, 22 years for running over the victim, and 6 years because it was Knight's third strike under California's 3 strikes law. As of today, Knight is incarcerated at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego and will not be eligible for parole until October 2034. XXXTentacion. XXXTentacion was an icon, a voice for a generation of teenagers going through troubled times. He was on a meteoric rise to the top when his life was cut short in 2018. After 5 long years, his murderers have finally been sentenced to prison. His death came as a shock to everybody, including fans, colleagues, and his family, most especially his mother. His mother, Cleopatra Bernard, having had only 2 children, Kix and his brother Aiden, was devastated and heartbroken after hearing of X's murder. We could never properly understand the pain mothers go through when they lose their children, but Cleopatra let it out for all to see. A month after X's death, she took to Instagram to pour out her heart. She said, "Today is a month since you left and I still can't wrap my head around it. It gets harder every day, but I will never allow your name to die. I love you with all my heart and I miss you beyond words." Now that the killers had been sentenced, she did an interview with TMZ where she aired some of her thoughts, and most of them were not so pleasant. Following the guilty verdict of 3 men involved in the killing of XXXTentacion, the rapper's mother has suggested they will be targets behind bars. In comments provided to TMZ, Cleopatra Bernard gave her thoughts on the life sentences the 3 men were given at their sentencing earlier this week. She said the sentence they received was justified and accused suspect Michael Boatwright of blowing her kisses throughout the trial. She said she hopes Boatwright, who she called Buttwright, will now get the kiss he wants so bad in prison. After the guilty verdict was read, Michael Boatwright was seen blowing kisses at the camera. Clearly, this is a man who is not fully remorseful for his actions. She went on to say the 3 men would be targeted by other prisoners due to the circumstances surrounding her son's death. "My hope for these other gentlemen is they will retain a firm grasp on the slippery soap," she said, referring to the threat of sexual violence she believes these men might face in prison. This slippery soap reference is from an episode of the popular animated television show, The Boondocks. In the show, it is revealed that inmates often get sexually assaulted while showering in the bathroom, especially after dropping their slippery soaps. But what happened on that fateful day that led to the death which shocked the entire social media landscape? It was truly a series of unfortunate events. On that fateful day, X went to a bank to withdraw money before heading to Riva Motorsports Superstore in Deerfield Beach, Florida. After withdrawing money, he was closely shadowed by a dark-colored Dodge Journey SUV, which contained his eventual assailants, including Dedrick Williams, Robert Allen, Michael Boatwright, and Trayvon Newsom. Williams was able to recognize Onfroy's car on the day of the murder, likely because Williams had been in a probation office at the same time as X in January 2018. According to the officials, Williams spotted X's car and called his colleagues, saying that they should go into the superstore that X had entered to confirm that it was really him. X arrived at Riva Motorsports Superstore and got in with his uncle. Security tape showed that Dedrick Williams and Robert Allen tailed X inside the store and casually walked right past him as he was browsing motorcycles. They were seen coming into the Riva Superstore and buying 2 black masks. X left the superstore about 30 minutes later, entered his black BMW, and drove away from the store. The assailant's SUV drove in front of X's car, blocking him in while Newsom and Boatwright allegedly stepped out of the vehicle and demanded X's belongings. A brief altercation ensued, in which Boatwright is alleged to have taken X's Louis Vuitton bag and Newsom stole his chain. During the struggle, X's uncle fled the car, while Newsom ran back to the suspect's vehicle. Despite the robbery being as good as done, Boatwright allegedly walked back to X's vehicle, grabbed his rifle, looked X in the eyes, and fired 6 shots at his neck, effectively killing him. Newsom and Boatwright then took the Louis Vuitton bag from X's car and ran back to their black SUV. Shortly after the death of XXXTentacion, the Broward County Sheriff's Office offered a $3,000 bounty for information, leading to the apprehension of any of the 4 suspects. Just 2 days after, the first suspect was arrested. The Broward County Sheriff's Office arrested 22-year-old Dedrick Williams in connection with X's murder. He was charged with dangerous and depraved first-degree murder, robbery with a firearm, and operating a vehicle without a valid driver's license. The remaining 3 arrests followed in the coming months. About a week after the murder, 22-year-old Robert Allen was named as a suspect in the case and was later arrested on July 26th. On the 5th of July, 22-year-old Michael Boatwright was arrested on separate drug-related charges, but on July 10th, Boatwright was met by officials while in jail and was presented with his warrant for premeditated first-degree murder. Police determined that Boatwright was the one who gave the 6 fatal shots to XXXTentacion. The 4 men were later indicted by a Broward County grand jury, each of whom was charged with first-degree murder with a firearm and armed robbery. The trial of Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsom, and Dedrick Williams started on February 7, 2023, nearly 5 years after the death of Yazzie Onfroy. And if convicted, all would face life in prison without the possibility of parole. But wait, that was just 3 names. Didn't we already establish there were 4 assailants? Yes, because on August 12, 12, 2022, Robert Allen decided to snitch and reach a plea deal with the prosecution. He testified against the other 3 defendants and pleaded guilty to the lesser conviction of second-degree murder, thus avoiding a potential death sentence. His sentencing is scheduled for February 24, 2023, and he could be imprisoned for life. Another suspect in the case did not want to snitch, but tried other means to escape trial was Michael Boatwright, the kiss blower. His attorneys claimed that he was incompetent to stand trial, and he requested that psychological experts be appointed to determine his legal competence. To his dismay, he was declared mentally competent to stand trial. The second day of the trial, February 8, 2023, featured accomplice Robert Allen's testimony against the other 3 defendants. Before the snitching got underway, Allen categorically outlined his relationship with all 3 suspects, stating explicitly that he had been closest with Dedrick Williams out of the 3 defendants and had been companions with him for close to 5 years. He also stated that they basically hung out almost every day. With regards to Trayvon Newsom, Allen stated that he had been living with him for 2 or 3 weeks at the time of the murder. He mentioned that he had known Michael Boatwright for about 2 years at the time of the murder, and like Williams, he also had seen Boatwright almost every day. While under oath, Allen corroborated the entire prosecution's account of the murder. He shed light on the planning of the killing, as well as how they shared the $50,000 they stole from X. Allen stated that he initially had a bad feeling about the incident and told the others that the robbery was a bad idea because he and Williams had already been spotted on surveillance at Riva Superstore. Boatwright and Newsom developed cold feet and became hesitant to go forward with the crime. Williams, the mastermind of the plan, asked the 2 if they were scared, and Boatwright replied, "All right, we're gonna get him." Allen stated that Boatwright and Newsom were told to be the gunman because he and Williams were already seen on security footage.
Shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright.
And who does he shoot?
Triple X.
On March 20th, 2023, almost 2 weeks after jury deliberations began, all 3 defendants were found guilty on all counts. Dedrick Williams and Trayvon Newsom were sentenced by the trial judge to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Michael Boatwright was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, one for first-degree murder and one for armed robbery, and another consecutive 30 years in prison for other charges. YNW Melly. Jamel Maurice Demons, known professionally as YNW Melly, was born May 1, 1999, to a single mother with no father figure in his life. After relocating to a poorer part of Gifford, Florida, his mother struggled to pay for housing and basic necessities. Living in a poor, dangerous neighborhood with no father, Melly turned to the streets for a life of crime and violence, which would eventually punctuate his entire life. Melly joined the Blood Gang at a very young age, and at the age of 16, he was arrested for firing at a group of students near Vero Beach High School. He consequently served several months in prison after being convicted of aggravated battery, discharging a firearm in public, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. Melly would spend a year in jail before being released on probation. To nobody's surprise, he would violate his probation, as well as being arrested for possession of marijuana, possession of weapon or ammunition by a convicted felon, and drug paraphernalia. All these charges are tame compared to what he was accused of in 2019. On February 12, 2019, Melly was charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder after he was tied to the October 2018 shooting deaths in Fort Lauderdale, Florida of 2 of his close friends and YNW colleagues, YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie. The rising Florida rap star YNW Melly shot 2 of his close friends to death and then, with the help of another friend, tried to make it look like they had been the victims of a drive-by shooting. The real victims, Sack Chaser and Juvie, were shot dead in the early hours of October 26, 2018 and driven in a Jeep Compass at 4:35 a.m. to the emergency room entrance of Memorial Hospital Miramar. Sack Chaser and Juvie were said to have been lifelong friends of Melly and were also trying to build their own rap careers from the ground up. As previously mentioned, Melly was not alone. It was a 2-man job. The second person arrested in connection with the October 26 double slaying was 20-year-old Cortland Henry, aka YNW Bortland, who has also been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. A few days after getting arrested, Melly took to Instagram to quickly save face and state that he was turning himself in. The post stated the following: "To all my fans and supporters, no, I did not get locked up in Washington. I want you guys to know I love you and appreciate every single one of y'all. A couple months ago, I lost my 2 brothers by violence, and now the system want to find justice. Unfortunately, a lot of rumors and lies are being said, but no worries, God is with me and my brother YNW Bortland. And we want y'all to remember it's a YNW family. I love you." The State of Florida v. Jamel Demons is an ongoing criminal case in Florida's 17th Judicial Circuit, in which if rapper YNW Melly is convicted, he faces either life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. The case gained widespread buzz due to Melly's most popular single being Murder on My Mind, a rap song in which Melly discusses hypothetical homicidal ideation. In the wake of his arrest and trial, Melly's Murder on My Mind single has catapulted to #1 on the Apple Music chart. The viral track contains sensitive lyrics such as "Yellow tape around his body, it's homicide. His face is on a t-shirt and his family traumatized. I didn't even mean to shoot him, he just caught me by surprise. I reloaded my pistol, cocked it back, and shot him twice." Jury selection for the trial of YNW Melly started on April 11th, 2023. The trial began on June 12th with both prosecution and defense giving their opening statements. The prosecutor mentioned that Melly and Bortland murdered their two friends, Sack Chaser and Juvie, in cold blood, and attempted to frame the homicide as a drive-by shooting. She also claimed that Melly confessed to murdering Williams and Thomas when he stated on Instagram direct messages in response to a question about their deaths, "I did that." The defense attorney cited that there was zero motive for Melly to murder his friends and that the state's case is plagued with reasonable doubt. Throughout the trial, the Florida native's behavior has been quite unstable, with the rapper reportedly crying upon seeing his victims in the hospital footage and later blowing kisses from his seats. This contradictory, strange behavior has caught a lot of attention as his attitude and temperament continue to shock fans during his trial for the double homicide. Specifically, on the third day of courtroom proceedings, June 14th, the Florida rapper was seen praying and blowing a kiss from his seat. The victims' families did not take this lightly, as they were already previously disgusted by him grinning and stroking his chin during proceedings. On the trial's second day, the Florida rapper was seen shutting his eyes and clasping his hands in prayer. He then uttered something before opening his eyes and strangely blowing a kiss toward people in the gallery. This kiss prompted the alleged victim's mother to speak out. Leandra Phillips, mother of Christopher Phillips, aka YNW Juvie, one of the victims, described his actions as disrespectful. She spoke with NBC Miami about the rapper's kiss and cited that it wasn't the first time he performed that action during the trial. "It's a pretty normal reaction to feel disrespected, unsafe, and threatened when the alleged killer of your son blows you kisses," she reported to the outlet. "He did it a couple times, that wasn't his first time." She continued by saying, "I walked out because I don't, what you praying for? You sitting there like you ain't got no remorse. Like every time I walk in, you smiling. This ain't the time for that. This is sad. This case is serious." Juvie's aunt, Ashley Phillips, also had a few words to say to the outlet about her nephew's friendship with Melly. She insisted that Melly was trusted in their community, having watched him grow up in Florida around their family. "This is somebody that we knew. It's somebody that we loved. It's somebody that we trusted, like we watched him grow up," Ashley expressed. "So this is a sad case. This is tragic. So we just praying for justice." With the trial being live streamed to millions of people, many of the spectators are picking notable and memeable moments to scrutinize, highlight, and analyze. This inevitably leads to certain actions or occurrences being blown out of proportion in relation to more serious legal matters. Regardless, the case's high profile and increased awareness would result in more chances for public knowledge and accountability. With increased awareness, the trial also brought about a massive increase in streams for the 24-year-old rapper. On Spotify alone, YNW Melly's discography amassed over 2.6 million streams in the 24 hours since his trial began on June 12th. Some of his more popular tracks contributed greatly to these numbers, such as Murder on My Mind and Suicidal. In addition, since his 2019 arrest, the RIAA certified 16 more of his records, 10 platinum and 6 gold. No matter how terrible his case looks in the courtroom, all the publicity is earning him quite a lot of money, though it might be to no avail, as the Florida native could face the death penalty under new state law. The jury deliberated for about 14 hours over 3 days, but could not reach a unanimous verdict. Melly would remain in custody awaiting retrial, which has been set to begin on October 2nd, 2023. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.